Are we? Okay. Welcome to the Recreation Committee meeting. It is 8 a.m. on Monday, October 4th. All members are, no, I mean, we all need to wake up. Okay, well, let's go on to our agenda. We'll acknowledge that the press and public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Do we need to do a roll call?
No, I mean,
Well, you were on the right path.
Okay.
So 2 of the members were present.
2 of our members are present. We believe that 1 may be joining us soon. Approval of the previous meeting's minutes.
Motion to approve September 13th meeting minutes.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh. Do we have any formal citizens' comments for this meeting?
no, ma'am.
Okay. I'll note that we did receive a lot of, I personally received a lot of comments by email leading up to the meeting that were around surfing, which is on our agenda, as I imagine other members did as well. So, and we'll get into that later. Let's move on to our departmental report with our director, Paige.
Okay, I do not have a lot of new stuff since 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were right here again. But I will point out a couple of things. We did have a line dance workshop on Saturday, September the 18th. We're getting ready to have a Taekwondo black belt testing on October the 9th, which is this coming Saturday. Special interest things, our farmers market, we are having one more on October the 21st. And following that, we'll have a movie on the multi-purpose field. Since it's Halloween, we're going to have Hocus Pocus. I know it's on our agenda, but it's also in the report, our rec track upgrade. You ask about that often, but we're projected to go live the first week of November.
Super.
So we've been migrating and doing what needs to be done. So we hope that we're successful with that. Hopefully the first week in November, if not, sometime that month. We have a teenagers meeting this coming Wednesday. Our connector run was Saturday. We haven't had our after action meeting. I haven't cleaned out my car yet. I haven't put everything away yet, but I thought it went very well. I do have to meet with the Chief Cornette and some of the officers to make sure that their part of it was good. Everything went well. It seemed as though we got the connector open sooner than ever, using the pedestrian and bike lane for some of the stragglers and then allowing traffic to traverse the connector.
Nice.
So at one point, I know we had at least 800 participants. I haven't seen the final numbers, but that's a good turnout. You know, we
Okay,
didn't have it last year at all because of COVID.
Mhm.
And this year, the numbers of pre-registration were down a little bit. Although our sponsorship money is the highest it's ever been this year.
Oh, great.
So I'm real proud of the Exchange Club for pounding the streets. And I think they've raised $85,000. And that money all goes to charity or
That's
charitable
awesome.
organizations for the prevention of child abuse. So kudos to Exchange Club for working hard at doing that.
Mhm.
And of course, this was the first year of this new course. So it was more challenging to all of us. The logistics changed, how we set up changed. There were a lot of changes, but I think everybody adapted and seemed to go well.
And I'll say, since I was there,
Mhm.
from a personal perspective, it was fantastic.
Good.
I mean, that was the perfect weather scenario. We don't always get that. I would love to see even more people taking advantage of that opportunity because it's such a great way to experience the views without the worry of traffic going by you. And, you know, it's just a safe, great family event to even bring your kids to. And I thought that the new course seemed to work well for what it's worth. And so it just seemed like it's getting better and better. And you're right. It's a great partnership with the Exchange Club and saw lots of people that are involved with the Exchange Club. They are helping out. So thanks to everybody who pitched in.
Right. It takes an army.
Yeah, our village, yeah.
Our village. Just a reminder, National Night Out is tomorrow. It really is a police event, although the Recreation Department is helping them pull this event off, and it will be at the Rec Center. Then Ghostly Tide Tales is coming down the tubes on October the 15th. Be held at Front Beach. We've talked about that right across from the municipal lot. And of course, our Halloween parade and carnival on October 30th, registration is open. So we encourage folks to go ahead and sign up for that. And of course, the Holiday Street Festival, we're working on that as well. I think someone asked about Doggy Day at the council meeting. We're working on that already. We're already working on the Front Beach Fest. So we've got a lot coming down the tubes with special events. Everything else, our athletics, youth soccer has begun. Our adult sports are going on now. And other than that, everything's going as normal. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
No, all looks really good. And to your point, Norma Jean, I think the connector was open like by 10:30 on Saturday.
It
rounding
was
out.
open
early.
before then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very, very well done.
Thank you.
Well, I have a couple of things. One is just October is jam-packed with
Mm.
events.
Right.
So thank you for
Sure.
hustling all the prep and day of work that goes into all of that. That's a lot that you guys are doing. And then we haven't even really talked that much about National Night Out, but that's this week. And that's a partnership that you do with the police department, but you guys have a big role in
Right.
hosting that. And if that is, are you still providing a meal? Like kind of in the past, we've had food for people and it's almost like dinner and a cookout for, is that still?
You know, we need to ask the police department, maybe
Is
go on
that
their
their piece?
website. I'm not sure the details.
Okay,
I haven't been hands-on with that as I have everything else.
okay. So that's more their thing, but
It's really their thing. We do provide some entertainment and of course the necessities, the tables, chairs,
okay,
amplification, that sort of stuff, but
Mhm.
they pretty much put that together themselves.
okay. Question, the last time I noticed the environmental class
Mhm.
was TBA details. Is that back on the schedule or what's going on with that?
The only thing I can say right now is TBA.
TBA,
Yes.
okay,
I really, in all fairness, haven't had a chance to address that.
is the instructor still interested?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
because she was amazing, and so.
She is amazing.
Would
yes.
love to see her continue on with a regular class.
That will certainly be added in at some point.
And then last time we discussed that there were some staffing issues. Would you like to fill us in on where we are with that?
Well, it's under new business, but I don't mind discussing it now.
Okay.
We have hired a part-time
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
individual, that's all right, to assist with the games and supervision of the building. I have another one coming on board, I hope. We're waiting for the background. I don't think there'll be a problem. Both of these, well, one's an Island resident who's retired.
Mhm.
The other one is a Mount Pleasant resident who's retired and was looking for something to do.
Super.
So we're real excited about that. For the community specialist, the front desk position, I've had 4 applications. But we haven't interviewed or done anything to fill that position yet.
Okay. All right, thanks for that update. Sorry, I
Sure.
kind of jumped ahead.
That's okay.
Still waking up. And then I think that was all of my questions. We were, hi Ryan. That's all right. We were just reviewing all the events that are going on. I know you were at the connector run this weekend. Yeah. Did you have any questions for Norma Jean just on activities that are going on right now and her report, which you may have already had a chance to review? Was in your packet. Oh, I know. One thing I wanted to note is this year, usually Halloween Carnival is on Halloween. But I'm guessing because of the way the weekend falls, it's worth noting that it is on Saturday, the 30th this year, just so there's no confusion for
That-
people out there.
That's correct. Typically, if it falls on Sunday, we do not do it on Sunday.
That's what it is. Okay.
So it is on Saturday, which works out good for us.
And in terms of trick or treating, we don't really direct people on when they trick or treat.
That
it
would,
wouldn't-
that would be a council thing. That wouldn't be a recreation thing.
Right. And
So,
I don't, we've
No,
never done that before.
Yeah.
It might be a little confusing to people, but they can just celebrate on Saturday and Sunday. if they-
exactly,
Yeah.
two-day Halloween.
Okay, let's move on to old business. We touched on this, but anything more on COVID-19 related issues, procedures, adjustments?
We just continue to follow the guidelines we put in place a while back.
And at the health and wellness fair,
Mhm.
did most people wind up who came and participated, were they wearing masks as we recommended, or how did that work?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I know a lot of folks did,
Okay.
but once again, it was spread out in such a way that everyone could social distance.
Okay.
All the folks that were administering vaccines and were taking blood, they all wore masks, I know, and a lot of the vendors did as well,
Mhm.
just because I taught them all. But I was kind of busy at that as well, so I was not
Mhm.
out and about like some people were, but there were a lot of masks present, yes.
Okay. I was curious to know how people were reacting to that. Okay, moving on to item B under old business, update on implementation of online registration program. You touched on this, but that seems to be set for beginning of November, as long as everything goes according to plan.
We have to be live the first week in November.
Okay. And this means, I guess there are some things that you do online right now, or just for the most part, this is a complete changeover on how people will be signing up for classes.
Yes. No. Right now, folks can kind of register for some things online, and they can pay. We usually send them invoice with a link to pay,
Okay.
because we currently can't take credit cards over the phone. But then to reconcile that with RecTrack and with BSNA is labor intensive for the staff.
Mhm.
So this will, and we've talked with Debbie Suggs about it. But this, once somebody registers online with this software and pay online with this software, it'll automatically integrate into RecTrack and BSNA.
Mhm.
So it'll take that pressure. Anytime you have to transfer something to something else, and then there's always room for error.
Mhm.
So this should help us and eliminate some of that chance for mistakes or errors.
Super. I mean, from a professional standpoint,
Oh,
since I
yes.
work with Blackbaud, a lot
Right.
of times in our customer success
Mhm.
stories that
Mhm.
I create, that is the thing. The software reduces multiple steps,
Right.
saves you time. The integration of those things is
Right.
can be a real game changer in terms of staff time and focus, and as you mentioned, eliminating the possibility for errors. So super. And so then I can just put in my credit card if I want to. Then
Mhm.
yeah. So that will
That's
be
correct.
great. I think a lot of people will appreciate that flexibility. Okay. Any questions from you guys?
Nope.
on that? Okay. Moving on to item C, a review of pilot program to allow surfing lessons on the beach and consideration for 2022. We have Desiree has provided a handout. And Ryan, you want? So we touched on this at our last meeting. The initial program has been a pilot program that was set for review in October. Looking forward to 2022, there's, as you can see, a few things that we need to consider. I think we can say, as mentioned, we got a lot of emails from, or I did, and I assume everybody here did, a lot of emails from happy families, including both parents and grandparents who were thrilled for the opportunity to have their to have kids be able to get surfing instruction without them having to drive to Folly Beach for it. And that it was just very convenient. And also they were very happy with, at least clearly one of our instructors encouraged a lot of his students and their families to write in. And they all seemed very, very happy with the instruction that they had received. So I'll let Desiree take it from here.
Sure. So I guess to facilitate and remind everybody of the current regulations, they're listed in that handout. And if you don't mind, just go through for the record. I'll go
Yes,
through
please.
them very quickly. The current surf lessons this summer were allowed as long as they were done within the current boundary restrictions that are stated on the city ordinances. And that refers to how close you can be from the pier or how close you can be from bathers. So you can't be within 100 feet of swimmers on the beach. We've required at least one instructor attending each lesson to be lifeguard, CPR, first aid certified with current certifications on file with the city. So when they submitted an application, they would provide all of that, and that would be reviewed for compliance, or at least that they're meeting that requirement before that it was presented for city council for approval. There's also a requirement to have a first aid kit on site during lessons. Instructors were required to provide liability insurance of at least $1 million that names the city as an additional insured. Surf instructions shall be limited to groups of 4 or fewer students and at least one instructor. So one instructor for 4 students. Instructions should not exceed 2 hours per day per instructor, nor 2 hours per day per student. No signs were allowed to be on the beach or beach access paths, and no merchandise allowed to be sold during the lessons. Also, instruction providers were not allowed to solicit students on the beach or any other public access path or parking lots. And then basically city council had the authority to limit how many licenses were approved every year. The failure to adhere to these standards that were listed in the ordinance could result in revocation of permission to provide surf instruction on the island. And then the city only allowed surf instruction to be provided until October 1st. I think that part of that was give the city an opportunity to review and make changes, and because it was a pilot program. So like I said, last month, I reached out to the 3 people that were approved by council. So we have received 3 applications. Those 3 were approved by city council earlier this year, to just get feedback on how it went, how many folks participated in their lessons, if we could find a distinction between how many of them were residents versus visitors, and so on and so forth. And I shared with you all when I shared the application, the agenda, I shared the messages that I received from all 3 of them. In addition to that, we have received positive feedback from people residents and visitors that participated in the lessons, just, being grateful for the opportunity and hopeful that it will continue to be in place. So the list of things to consider, some of them come from the staff. So I reached out to both the police and the recreation department to get feedback on this this pilot program, police department, but, as it relates to enforcement and any complaints that we've received. Chief Cornett indicated that the police department only received one complaint and it was deemed to be unfounded. But other than that, it really wasn't a big issue. Also asked Norma Jean to provide feedback on what the ratio of reasonable and ratio of students per instructors is, so that you all could consider some of the requests that have been made to increase that. And then, so again, I've just provided a bullet list of things that you all can decide, discuss, and consider for next time. One is to increase the number of participants per group. One of the instructors, or I think one or two, indicated that sometimes they've had to turn down large families because we're only allowing 4 per instructor. I think that 4, based on Norma Jean's and input as well, we think that 4, maybe 5 or 6 could be a good number. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's a safe group, so that anything happens, the instructor is able to quickly respond. I do think that part of the reason that the program was successful and that we didn't get a whole lot of complaints about it is that they were small enough to still be not too noticeable. I think that was key. So just food for thought as you consider what changes could be implemented for next year. Another request was to eliminate the time limits or increase the hours of operation per instructor per day. So right now they're limited to 2 hours per day or 2 hours per day per student. Parking passes, that was one of the instructors stated that some of his clients received parking tickets because they were parked illegally because they couldn't find parking. Again, that depends on the time of the day and the location where they're, want to provide the classes. Another request was to allow classes to be provided year round. Right now, October, November, it's a pretty good time of the year, and they would like to be able to take advantage of that. And other than, regular visitation winds down a little bit. So, that's an opportunity I think that they would appreciate. One of the things that from the staff's perspective, we would like to change is require applicants to list a location where they're planning on providing classes. That helps us with just quickly identifying where they are in case there's any emergency. It also helps us with enforcement because we know where they are. We can, just do a quick check and make sure that they're compliance with the regulations. And also would allow us to ensure that they're not all clustering in the same area, that they're spread apart. Rather than us dictating the location, they can pick it, but we would have an opportunity to change that if we think that's necessary. Another request is for us to continue the annual review and approval of applications. Regardless of whether the changes are made to the code permanently, we would still like the approval or the permit to be renewed every year. Give us an opportunity to evaluate any issues with any particular provider if that's the case. And that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously this is from us and from the folks that provided the instructors, but hopefully this helps facilitate the conversation for you all about what happens next year.
Super. Thank you for organizing that and helping us. I think maybe we can just go through each of these
Yeah.
points.
Can I ask
but-
one question
Sure.
real quick? So Desiree, from the trial year period, were there any enforcement issues as far as where, what time, solicitation, signage? I mean, did anything?
We had one issue with one of the instructors where it was brought up to our attention that one was advertising for more people or more
Hours.
additional hours, more than 2 hours. We quickly reached out and made sure that they understood that was not in compliance with the regulations, and they changed it. But other than that, no
Okay.
issues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we go through each of these bullet points and discuss what we want to do. And then at the end, I don't know if we really have to do anything formal, but increasing number of participants per group. One thing that Desiree and I discussed was the possibility of allowing for a group of up to 8, as long as they have a 4-to-1 ratio of students to instructors, at least. I mean, they could have more instructors, but that they at least have 2 instructors for a group of 8.
So
So-
on that, when you look at the current regulations, item D, surf instructions shall be limited to groups of 4 or fewer students and at least 1 instructor.
Mhm.
Technically, they can. So right now they can have more than
Okay.
1 instructor
Okay,
as long as
that's
they
true.
keep that ratio.
okay,
What I think we should consider, and I didn't list it on the things to consider, is having a limit. Because right now, I think that the way that this reads, if they have 10 instructors, they could
Mhm.
actually have,
And yeah, I think the intent actually last year was to restrict to groups of 4. That was the intent. I don't know if it is maybe a little bit vague,
I think,
or there's
yeah.
some gray area there, but I think our idea at the time was we were trying to avoid the possibility that you had a very large group. Or large, that's my memory. Now, it could be interpreted other ways. I don't know if we can make it clearer.
Yeah, and that
Um,
would be my recommendation, that we tighten up that language, because right now, the way somebody could interpret that, at
'Cause,
least, if you
yeah.
have at least 1 instructor for each, for a group of
Mhm.
4, you could have however many instructors, as long as you
Right.
keep that ratio.
And I think, I mean, you don't want, if they have multiple instructors within their organization, you don't want to be too prohibitive. But at the same time, I think the actual group size at the moment, I think should be capped at 8. If any thoughts on size? Yeah.
It's not, is that cap per day, it's cap per session, so you can have maybe 10 people per session. I don't want to get into over regulating this thing to the point where it's almost too hard to enforce. But I think if you go through, I think that'd be less of a problem once you get into the other bullet points, because if you eliminate the increase in the amount of hours per day, you can spread that out. So instead of trying to force everybody into a small period of time, you can spread it out over a longer period of time. And if you were to allow classes year round, which I think is great, because right now we have surf is phenomenal, and surf gets better in the fall and in the winter too. And then, so we just continue to spread that out. So yeah, I think it's all these points are definitely to be considered for. I think regardless, we need to, reinstate it, and I think we need to make some changes to it to open it up a little bit more.
Mhm.
Whether that's, I don't think that's gonna be figured out here today, but like I said, moving forward and knowing that we're gonna make some of these changes moving forward, then work with the other businesses, whether or not they want to, continue to take their information and families' information and try to develop a program, to make it better.
But maybe we should start with, is there the agreement that we would all like to see this program continue? I think we have
Oh, yeah.
that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
think that's-
yeah, so just look, we
Mhm.
can knock
Mhm.
that off the list.
Yeah.
And I'll just, for all the reasons that we kind of covered, but also safety, that this program allows people to learn how to surf properly, and that benefits everybody who's out there in the water on Isle of Palm. So, but I do think we probably do want to go ahead and be specific in this right now about what our recommendations are.
I like the terminology that one of the instructors gave in their recommendations for the upcoming year. And his was a maximum of 12 per class with a minimum of 2 to 3 instructors.
Okay,
I think that's good. I think that's
Okay.
a good line. You're limited to 12. So
mhm,
that will take care of a family or most families.
right,
And of course, every family, they're going to be different surfing levels. So
Okay.
you would need 2 instructors probably.
Mhm.
So I like that. And that was one of the recommendations that one of the instructors made. And I
Okay.
think that's reasonable.
Okay.
But Norma Jean, keeping the 4-to-1, or not necessarily in that scenario though, right?
Well, if you
With
require
2 to
3
3.
If you require
instructors,
3, yes.
yeah, I think that to me, the ratio of 4-to-1 seems manageable. Again,
Okay.
depends on how old the people that are taking classes,
Yeah.
maybe older folks, you know,
Mhm.
you wouldn't have that big of an issue, but younger, but then,
Right.
you know, you get to the point of over-regulating by age, and I don't think we want to get into that.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think that a maximum of 10 to 12 is still manageable, small enough
Right.
that
Mhm.
it's kind of goes under the radar in a way.
Mhm. Well,
Um,
yeah, and
no more
that's-
than 12, and then if you do have 12, as long as you meet the ratio of instructor per 4, you know, 1 per
Mhm.
4, I think that shouldn't be an issue with us.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should be striving for that 4-to-1 ratio for safety and just making sure that things are well under control. And I was thinking going up to 8, but if you all feel comfortable with 12, I can see that could be a manageable class size with the right number of instructors. So I think we need to stress that they have that, and then continue to have at least one instructor who is lifeguard, CPR, and first aid certified within that group.
Correct.
And then in terms of, excuse me, eliminating time limits and increasing hours of an operation per instructor per day, if we're going up to larger groups, I don't feel comfortable increasing the number of hours of instruction because I feel like we potentially get into at least in this moment, I don't feel comfortable doing both. I feel like that potentially makes the sensibilities around having business on the beach. Maybe we start to get into some danger zone there. Thoughts on that?
So technically this year, each instructor was only able to provide a minimum of 4 classes a day. Four lessons or no, 1 lesson to a group of 4 per day
Mhm,
of no more than 2 hours.
mhm,
So they're only allowed to be on the beach for a maximum of 2 hours per day.
mhm,
I mean, I think that's really up to you all.
mhm. My comfort level is to keep that right now,
Yeah.
but Jenny,
I would keep the lessons to 2 hours.
Correct.
mhm,
Now, if you wanted to extend the hours they could be on the beach, particularly this time of year, because I don't think we have that many visitors. But I think if you still limit the amount of time that lessons can go,
mhm,
you're not going to have huge crowds down there. So you might want to think about increasing maybe 4 hours on the beach, because they might have hour-and-a-half lessons,
mhm.
but limit lessons to 2 hours, because 2 hours is really a long time for a
Right.
lesson.
Right.
But they would be able to, if we increase it to 4 hours, they would be able to give lessons to at least two groups of 12.
At least 2, maybe 3,
yeah.
depending on if they did hour lessons. So
Mm.
Mhm. I guess from the instructor's this is more for the sake of the instructor having a viable business model. Although we have 3 instructors who are using it, and seems to be, it's not like we're having trouble getting people here to do it. So.
I will say too, just keep in mind, the instructors are always going to want more hours, larger groups.
Yeah.
That's, to me, what I would like to see is something that's still manageable from an enforcement perspective, and it's still, it can go under the radar so that we do not hear the complaints from residents who see, what could be, what it is,
Right.
commercial activity on the beach. So I think we're still trying to strike that balance.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out, we had 3 instructors who took advantage of this opportunity, or 3 businesses essentially that took advantage of this opportunity. They clearly may have been bringing in other instructors. But we could see even more come in, especially if we open it up and loosen on the restrictions. And so that's when I think we start to butt into like the sensibilities around having too much commercial activity on the beach. And some locations seeing, the day fill up with surf instruction and it getting more crowded with that. I'd say, let's see how it goes with increasing the group size first and hold back on allowing a greater number of hours of instruction per day would be my suggestion.
You good with that?
And then perhaps next
Try
year,
it, yeah.
if everything's going well and we, there's no concerns from the residents who live in those areas that are most affected, or no, not a strong sentiment of concern that could, we could look at increasing the number of hours that are allowed for the sake of the instructor. Parking passes, I don't think that's we need to be doing that. Is there anybody else who feels
would agree.
differently? I mean, clearly they should be able to direct people to how to use the parking setup. And currently, if they're doing it somewhere off of our commercial sector, then parking is currently free. So it should,
Well,
as long
after
as they're
October-
parking correctly.
After October 31st, but free for residents with a decal on the municipal parking.
Yeah, I mean, if they're near the commercial district, there should be parking available for them. I mean, I guess on the weekends, on a busy weekend, yes, they may have a struggle. But I feel like they're gonna have to figure that out. And then I do think we should just go to year round. We wanted to evaluate in October at the end of this year. And I personally think I think we should continue to have the program under evaluation from year to year, but that we have a review period that starts in October of next year, but that we continue to allow for instruction to go until the end of the calendar year. Just because of these things that we're going through right now, I think we need to continue to evaluate how things are going.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Susan.
So, require applicants to list the location where classes will be provided. And we're talking about the people who are providing the surf instruction when they're applying for a permission to do lessons. I think this is a great idea to avoid the possibility that they're getting on top of each other and clumping in one area. So, and can you talk a little bit more about how you think that could, from a staff perspective, how you might manage that?
Well, I mean, it's a simple fix. We would put it on their application and just require, ask them where they're planning on giving the instructor. That's the information that we would provide to the police department. So at any given time, they would know where. We don't know when they're giving the instructor, but if in the case of an emergency, we would be able to quickly identify the location where they should be. It also helps us to just keep an eye out in a more efficient way to ensure that people are compliant with the regulations. It's still very early on now that we're increasing the number of students. I think we would want to keep an eye out a little bit closer just to confirm.
Perfect. And also the possibility that if you start to have a large number of applications,
In the same location, yeah, we would be able to recommend, and as part of the approval process, we would say, okay, well, you're approved, not necessarily to that location, but I think that having a better communication between the city and the participants about the location would be beneficial, so that we avoid that clustering in one specific area.
And should help with parking.
And should have parking as well.
All right, and we've already talked about the annual review. I think it seems to have worked fine to have this rolling opportunity for instructors to ask for permission to do instruction. I suspect that the ones who've already been doing it will do it first opportunity now. But to still continue to have city council put a stamp of approval based on staff recommendation. So, any other thoughts?
No, I just had a comment on requiring applicants their location. Excuse me. The problem with that, or can be, is, well, one, and I think it should be zones perhaps for certain areas. Because the instructors are gonna be limited by the city ordinance. If there's people in that area swimming, obviously they cannot
Mhm.
have a class in that area because they can't be within 100 feet of bathers or what have you. So they can't cancel class because there's people in the water.
That's true.
So it needs to be zones. And surfing comes with different levels of experience, and there's different types of breaks. So if you're younger, if you're first time swimmer or first time surfer, you may go to 25th, but if you're more experienced, you're going to be up near 37th. So they may want to change their classes based on the experience within that class itself. So it's just, I don't want to limit it to one spot. I just want need to be open that they can move based on the experience of their surfer in their classes as well.
That's a great point. And I hadn't really factored that in. I know that on Folly, they do assign locations but they have a lot of surfing instruction and camps going on. So they're really trying to mitigate and manage. Maybe that's something to ask the instructors about, whether they see the advantages of really trying to hone in on one location, just from a management standpoint. Why don't you touch base with that?
Yeah, and I will. And I think that, yes, the idea of asking about zones or areas, between 30th and 35th, that's usually where they go. Or we will go to different locations depending on the group of people, but at least having them indicate where they should be expected is I think a bit beneficial for the city as well. Without it being too prescriptive that if they're not there,
Right.
I don't think that that's the intent.
It's just to have some better communication and know
Correct.
where they might be. And I don't know, maybe it's even in spite of that, some instructors may see the advantage of staking out one area just for the ease of messaging with their students. So it's not confusing as to where they're going to be and when they meet people. But that's an excellent point, that there's different levels of difficulty that you could find on the island, depending on our physical topography. Okay, cool. Nothing else on surfing, I take it? Or
So what happens next? So this expired
Yeah.
October 1st, right? So no lessons this week, obviously, until we can get this back in front of council, or?
Yeah, so the idea would be, based on the feedback today, we would draft an ordinance amendment that would be
Gotcha.
presented on Tuesday, the following city council
Okay.
meeting.
I think that's
For
good.
approval.
Mhm. And I feel like we've kind of covered, I think you can, based on our feedback
Yeah.
here, I don't think we necessarily have to vote on it. And we can, if there are any concerns about some of the specifics, when we get to it at our full council meeting, then we can discuss that then, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll do a red line so that people can see what's new, what's been there, just so that they can easily identify the proposed changes.
Is there a way for us, so will we need 2 readings for the changes
Yeah,
then?
yes. However, when it's approved a first reading, the pending ordinance doctrine kicks in.
Okay,
So it would be allowed between first reading and second reading.
so they'll be able to get back to surfing instruction.
Mhm.
And we can't necessarily like do anything in between to allow them during this current period of
No,
nice
ma'am.
weather and conditions. Okay. And I don't think that was really intended last year, but if things had been differently, we may have wanted to just cancel the program, I guess, but encouraging that this has all come together well, I believe. Thank you to staff
You're
and
welcome.
everybody for thinking outside the box. Let's move on to discussion of suggestions for 2022 Recreation Committee. So we touched on this at our meeting last month, trying to just have something of a changeover note for the next recreation committee that will start in January. And I have some thoughts, I just thought it would be good to have a good conversation along those lines, and we can kind of walk through some different topic areas. And I see, Norma Jean, you look like you're ready to talk. You're
Ready to write them down.
Yeah. So if we can kind of, if you and Nicole can kind of keep track of, I'd like it to be a, open conversation, and we may all have a few things that we want to suggest or consider or recommend for down the road. I think there was agreement at our last meeting that a lot of the past year and a half has been adapting to COVID, and we may still be doing that in the next few months. We're all hopeful that we can get past COVID, I believe, with the start of next year, that hopefully we'll have some relief and everybody can truly start to get back to normal. But some acknowledgement that we're not quite done with COVID yet. And that has had a dramatic impact on the rec programs. And along with that, staffing issues that have complicated what we're able to do. My hope in the short term is that once we get staffing under control, we can get back to offering Sunday gym hours, and hopefully even expand Sunday offerings down the line when we get back to normal. Otherwise, maybe we should, I would like to start out long-term conversation with just about the strengths that I see at the rec center and the rec department. Just fantastic events. I think just outsized performance for our island and what we do with events. And, that is both for our community, and there is a piece of it that is related to tourism, because some of our festivals, are funded with tourism money and help hopefully bring people to the island. Fantastic work with events and youth and adult sports. We may continue to be one of the few programs in the area that offers fast start programs for younger kids. And so we draw in people from Mount Pleasant and surrounding communities who don't have that opportunity, I believe, through the Mount Pleasant Rec for 3 and 4-year-olds to do things like soccer. I think that Ryan may have been the person who initiated that. How long ago is that?
Well, my boys are 22, so I had to yeah, it's when my boys were 3.
And it's worth noting that we don't have the numbers in our own community to support
Sustain it.
sports teams without drawing in other communities to participate. So we're in a different situation than, say, Mount Pleasant is, where they're really struggling, I think, to keep up with their numbers of their growing community and serving them. So we do need to reach out and do some innovative things like that to help bring people in. Teenagers is fantastic involvement with that program. The dog park is a winner. And the grounds and maintenance are always well done. My personal feeling is, for the future, I think hoping to see maybe a greater percentage of engagement of our community, including Wild Dunes residents, who I'm not sure, I mean, I don't live in Wild Dunes, but I'm not sure how tapped in they are to what the opportunities are that we have. And And feel free, Norma Jean, to
Okay.
jump in, and you have a better read on that.
We have quite a few wild doings folks
You
that
do?
participate in
Okay.
programs.
Okay.
And Carolyn with the association of there gets information out to the residents.
Okay,
She works
great.
with us real closely and
Okay,
we
wonderful.
communicate with her often
Okay,
and
Wonderful.
she conveys that information to the residents. So I
okay,
think we have a great working relationship with them.
okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. But maybe I have heard, and I feel like there are some sectors of maybe young couples and maybe people in that 45 to 70 age group that may not understand all that's available, especially if they're moving here after they've had kids, growing up. And I definitely know there are people that aren't tapped into the rec center that I think it's worth continuing to push and see how we can pull even more in a larger percentage of our community, because they're missing some great opportunities. I'll let you guys jump in if there's anything specific that you'd like to discuss. I have some other things that I'm hoping for the future that I would encourage our next committee to start looking at when they can.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think we need to put surfing on the list. I mean,
Mhm.
because if you don't have the history, and you guys have been dealing with this a lot longer, it'd be nice to be sure of the history and there's some carryover of knowledge on what it took to get this pilot year in and then to get the second year in
Mhm.
again. The only item I had, and Norma Jean, speak without any experience whatsoever, so I'll say that right up front.
Yeah.
You see other communities that have a community center as opposed to a rec center, and I don't have a great knowledge of what the difference is between A or B.
Mhm.
But that's something long-term I'd love for us to look at. Again, I have no idea what the ramifications are, what it means, staffing program or anything, but it's something I'd love to have a discussion around at some point.
And so you're talking about a kind of a different feel and approach of pulling people in, having.
Possibly, yeah, just to see what it would
Mhm.
take to do it and what it would even mean from a different program standpoint, if anything. So,
Making it more of a focal point for gathering and for activity than just having people who are in the moment, either using the facilities
Right.
or,
recreation.
yeah.
And what's interesting is when people, because I don't call it rec center, I call it a community center. And based on the programs that we have, it's not just all recreation, it's everything that we offer down there. And ever since we did the addition, it's really been referred to as the Islands Community Center for a long time. While we have recreation programs, it's a place for meeting and gathering, whether obviously COVID had a big hit on it and a lot of those programs meeting indoors and gathering indoors had to stop. But from the gather and knit to the whittling to, everything, mahjong and all the other
Right.
programs and classes and that we've offered there. Like I said, the last 2 years has really put a hit on it, but I agree with Philip. We need to work on bringing that back up when we can safely.
And
And-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, and we have, and I did kind of laugh at the, rec center, community center, it's almost a terminology thing.
Mhm.
Because in reality, the recreation center, where we are now, we're a senior center.
Mhm.
We have seniors participating in everything. We
Mhm.
do have the Gather Net, which is free. People just come in, they sit and they knit and they socialize. The whittlers, the same thing. They come in and socialize. We did put the coffee corner in prior to COVID. So we had coffee so people could stay and sit around if they chose to and have coffee in the lobby. So I think we're fulfilling more of that need than folks realize.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much in the daytime. But if you're there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the place is hopping with
Mhm.
people on the playground and just hanging out with picnics, and they ride their bikes there and they just hang out. So I think we really are true a community center.
Mhm.
I agree with the demographics of the age group that you're talking about. That's a hard group to pull in.
Mhm.
Because it's hard to program for them when they're children and grandchildren, they're taking them to horseback riding and they're taking them to singing lessons and they're taking them violin lessons and they're taking them to programs in Mount Pleasant or to the library. So it's tough sometimes to get those people in because there's so much in this area to offer
Mhm.
that it's hard to get them inside a building when we have beautiful weather and, there's just so many opportunities out there. So it's hard for us to compete
Mhm.
with everything that's around in the Charleston County area.
Well, and I'm thinking kind of that group that maybe are like, I'm getting ready to be in a couple of years, and empty nesters who, and especially, like I said, those kind of early retirement people
Mhm.
who might not want to think of themselves as teenagers just yet, who maybe are looking for something a little more active. And I'm not really sure what they might want. I think it might be worth for the next committee, in the next year or two, doing more of inviting the community in to discuss what are you looking for that we're not already doing that you would truly want to get engaged in, and doing maybe, some surveying, and that kind of thing, or discussion groups, similar forums that were similar, but maybe fine tuned from what we've done in the past on other issues. So, yeah. And the other thing that, but I wonder if, given our conversation, to make it more clear and inclusive, you could, it's always going to be the rec, the actual facility, but maybe we change the name to the Recreation and Community Center, just to indicate really what the center truly is all about. So there's no, for anybody who thinks one is different than the other, that might be something for the next.
I don't know
Group
that
to
it truly
consider.
has a name. For those that have lived here all their lives, they still call it the playground.
The playground.
It's the playground, it's the rec.
Mhm.
So it formally doesn't have a name.
I mean, I've seen the I thought it was
There's
like a
not-
recreation department with more, no, or center recreation
There's
center.
nothing formal
Okay, that's good to know.
that I know of.
Uh-huh, okay. Let's see, well, one thing, okay, so I think that in the future, and we might have done this if it wasn't for COVID, but was greater evaluation of the footprint and what's possible, for expanding some of our opportunities. For example, can we get another tennis court in there, those kinds of things, but looking holistically at the footprint, I think that that's probably a little bit overdue at this point. And now we have some revenue opportunity, or we have some extra money in the bank compared to where we've been in the past. Our financial position might allow to do some of those things, and make some of those changes, more easily than we have before. And that includes, I think, the argument against adding on the fitness center, having a more expanded fitness center in the moment, was we needed to really focus on important needs like drainage and fixing up the marina. And we have spent a lot of the past 4 years making some real headway in both of those areas. We still have plenty of other needs on the island, but I feel like the time for the conversation to look at that again, and the pool, that I think we could be moving in those directions to at least start having those conversations again about what more we can do in the footprint. There are limitations. We only have so much space, but and you had previously also suggested looking at what was the fitness pad. Is that the right way to describe that?
No, that national fitness course,
Oh, outdoor,
Yeah.
the outdoor fitness course.
Obstacle
Yeah.
course, kind of.
Mhm.
That came up right around COVID,
Mhm.
and we decided we needed to set that aside until we got to a place where we
Mhm.
knew what was going on. So that might be another thing. I've heard from some users at my house that maybe the basketball courts could be, outdoor basketball courts could be adjusted, even though they're extremely popular. Maybe the way they're laid out could potentially be more advantageous for the way they do games there. I'll put them in touch. And this had come up. I really would like to see the possibility of a community garden, whether that's feasible, discussed more in depth. There is a group called, I believe it's Green Heart, that works with communities to develop and utilize community gardens. We understand that that we don't want that to be a burden on staff. But if there is a group out there in the community who might really agree to help out with something like that, I think that's worth looking at. And I think we're making some, I'm glad to see that we're looking at yoga on the beach as something that is in the works potentially sooner than later, but using the beach as a location more often for rec activities, I think is good. But one thing I wanted to mention, and it's not really related to the rec center exactly, but I would like to bring back up this possibility of providing greater access to the water by expanding paddle boarding and kayaking opportunities in a holistic way that can include offering those opportunities if we're going to have a new public park at the marina, but also partnering with the Exchange Club. And I bumped into somebody at the Exchange Club who we've discussed this in the past and who had encouraged this idea for council. And I think that there's still that opportunity that we could work with them. They have a fantastic facility. I think they're very open to us using it. And even if we are offering paddle sports at the marina through our, in our footprint, I think we could do both and really have encouraged that in a variety of locations. And I think that is a fantastic way for people to have access to the water that is low impact on our environment, and high impact in terms of enjoyment. So my only other thing is, have we ever done anything with cornhole? Like from a rec department
We have,
standpoint?
we've offered cornhole opportunities, bocce ball. We just put it out and announced what days are there. We didn't have much
Okay.
participation in that.
Cornhole seems to be trendy right now, but so I don't know.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I meant a lot of things to list. I think we still need to continue to evaluate our capital plan, and look at what is that 10-year plan and whether that needs to be revised or those are things that we have that there for a reason, and trying to make those things come to fruition if possible. So and a lot of that stuff you listed is on there. So.
Mhm.
It is.
And it's like going through whether, Park Circle has a good community garden up there, one of their parks up there. Not in Park Circle, but one of the outside ones. And then, but knowing, not getting the cart before the horse, and we know that we have to expand our tennis courts. We know we're gonna have to modify our basketball courts, and that's coming up soon.
Mhm.
So I'd hate to put something in place only just to have it torn out. We need to have like know what that capital plan is and have long range vision for what we'll call it that corner of the rec center is going to be like in the future.
Mhm.
And whether it's expanded basketball, expanded tennis, expanded community garden, or what have you. There's a lot of area over there that can be utilized a little bit more efficient. But like I said, it comes down to just planning and spending for it appropriately.
Phil, do you have anything else?
Nothing else other than what I
Okay.
already said. Yeah.
All right, thank you all for that conversation, and let's see, otherwise, we'll move on to miscellaneous business. Our next meeting date is scheduled for 8 a.m. Monday, November 1st. This is interesting timing. Well, one thing, the rec center will be a polling place, will it, or not?
We always are, yes.
Yeah.
On the
Yes.
second.
So, and you'll be closed then to other how do
No.
you, what's
We
the
continue-
protocol for that?
We continue activities. We just put voting in a space by themselves.
Okay. All right. So
So
it'll be,
any chance we can postpone that? I mean, I've got Halloween on Saturday,
oh, true.
voting on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
fine with
yeah,
going to the next week if
killing
that
me.
helps
Yep.
you. Yeah,
No
Um,
problem.
The 8th.
yeah, that's fine. So we'll just do same time on Monday, November 8th. If everybody is good with that.
Mhm.
All right.